I guess I'll probably. There we go. So now we're live. Yes, we are live. Okay, cool.
There we go.
There we go. Welcome back, everybody. This is Mark 73 of the Super Civil Servants Podcast. My name is Greg, and I've got plans for the 17th now. Chris, how about you?
Oh well, yeah. Well, plans. Hopefully, it works out with timings just during the week and work and all. But I'll find a way to make it work.
I'll find a way to make it work. That's right. That's right.
This is the way.
That's right. That's right. We'll figure it out. There you go. You hear him, Chris, with me tonight. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Another week put in. At that point, next week I have jury duty, so we'll see if Chris can avoid getting picked for said jury. At that point,
Yeah.
but yeah, so yeah, we got a couple more weeks till Thanksgiving, a little bit longer break.
There you go. Yeah, it's definitely the busy time where I'm at, so it's going to get really hectic because the breaks don't really for the post office. It's
Oh yeah.
Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day. Those are the only breaks. So yeah, but we're going to see. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's that time of year. It's the best time of year to make money at the post office. But
Mm-hmm.
special guest with us tonight, Adam. How you doing, buddy?
Hey guys, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
Oh man, you are a topic for tonight, so we definitely want to
Yes.
and talk about it. You got some great
Wow.
stuff to talk about. So,
You, that's you're too kind.
oh no, man, it's really good stuff. But no, we're gonna get into that. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get the network plugs out of the way. We are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network, where you can find shows Monday through Sunday and continually growing. So check out the feed because there's always new stuff coming on. Mondays, World's Finest True Believers. Tuesday, you can check out DC Alliance podcast. Then Wednesdays is Marvel Alliance. Thursday, you're either going to get a slice of film, which is Katie diving into a film, or a Star Wars Alliance podcast. Fridays, here with us, Super Civil Servants Live, and Friday mornings, you get to get superhero discussions, which is covering animated series. Saturdays and Sundays, you get the DC comic book rundown from Weird Science DC Comics and Weird Science Marvel Comics. And then there's also the Ranger podcast, and I said it right this time without the S. And that's going to be on Sundays. I believe their first episode was last Sunday. Was it last Sunday? Or
2 Sundays ago.
Two
I think
Sundays
they're
ago,
drop.
okay.
I think they might be dropping their new one this coming.
Okay, fantastic. It's gonna be awesome, and more stuff to come, I'm sure.
Mhm.
So just you know, check out Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We have a Patreon feed. We can $1 and $5 tiers. The $1 tier just helps keep the juice in the lanterns. That's I think Nathan coined that, and I really like that one. And then the $5 tier gets you the extra stuff, the exclusive. We have amalgam chats, which is podcasts coming together to talk about stuff. We have movie reviews. You can also get episodes early and ad free. Not all early and ad free, but some episodes early and ad free with the $5 Patreon. Any kind of support you can give us is always fantastic, and we appreciate everybody who is. So I think that's about it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we got it. Yeah.
I nailed that. All right, cool. The wine hasn't hit me yet. So, all right. Well, Adam, I'm going to start the night out with your stuff, man. So, take the floor, introduce yourself, and talk to us about the Kill Journal.
Yeah, so I'm a comic book writer and television writer, and I came to know you guys through Chris Balga here, is because I listened to World's Finest True Believers and said, hey, I've got this graphic novel previous to the Kill Journal called The Eight, and he invited me on the show, and which was awesome because he's a deep cuts guy that goes way deep. In fact, it was funny. I do this TV show called Spell Slingers. It's a Celebrity Magic the Gathering show, and Joe Manganiello was on it, and he had his Dragonlance T-shirt on with him, and he was like, "Dude, can you name this character?" And I could, and he said, "That's a deep cut, man. Those are the true believers." And it's funny because I would say the same about you and your show. But yeah, I come from the world of television has been my vocation, and comics have been my passion most of my life. And I write a TV show and direct one called Escape the Night. I did that for 4 seasons, and I'm now writing an interactive show, which is super fun for the big Netflix. And it's an interesting arena, building something interactive. It's like when I was working in video games, writing in games. You're building a world that triggers things and comes back around, which is fun, but it's not quite comic books, which is the most finite, right? Because you have panels, you have just frames and words, and is really a little bit more heartfelt in that way because it's so raw. But that's so. And then so earlier this year, I launched a graphic novel that I've been working on for a couple of years called The Eighth, which we had great success on Indiegogo, getting it funded and beyond. And 5 of the 8 issues are out, and people like it. So that was a win, because there's always that precipice, right? When, always when my pilot episode of a TV show or the first episode of a new season comes out, you're like, man, are people going to hate this? Did we do it all wrong? And it's like the night before it releases, and you're like, I think I need to rewrite this whole thing, and you've already shot it. It's too late.
As I told you off air, and I'll say it here, our network co-host of Ranger Alliance, Joe, definitely gives you high praise for the 8th. He told us in our show when I mentioned that you're coming out on that he really enjoyed the 8th and looks forward to the next couple of issues.
Yeah, Joe is awesome dude, by the way. Yeah, totally great, and that was so encouraging to hear. And he's been such a fan and so supportive. But there's always this, window of panic, and no matter, that where you're like, did we make something and it sucks, and you think that, and then it goes out into the world, and there was that initial feeling with the 8th, and I thought, oh, the 8th was a success, people liked it. I won't have that with the Kill Journal, but sure enough, the moments before you launch the campaign, you think, God, this whole issue is so wrong. I gotta throw the whole thing away, but it's too late because it's made. But it's but that's I guess the creative roller coaster. So the Kill Journal is out on Indiegogo, and we're funded. We crossed our goal, and now the cool part is we're unlocking mini stories. And I wanted to. The Kill Journal is kind of like with the 8th. It's a story that's been with me for a long time. And comic books were just the right way to tell it. It's a horror graphic novel, and it's set in the world of revenants and survivors. And revenants are vengeful spirits back from the dead, hungry for revenge. Sometimes people call them slashers, or in the East they call them juncture. And so there's different names for it, but they're like a physical manifestation of an unsettled spiritual problem in a way. The Kill Journal is a little bit like the aftermath of the horror movie, right? When there's 3 or 4 people left over, and all their friends are dead, and they're covered in mud and blood, and the block is on fire, and the police sirens always sound at the end, right? If they're somehow coming to save the day, and then the credits roll. And this story is after those credits have rolled. And people go, wow, all my friends have been butchered in front of me. I've experienced, a level 10 trauma. I have no idea what to do with my life now. I'm broken, and everything's been taken from me. And that's when they find themselves at St. George's Church. And he runs these self-help groups, or support groups for people who've survived these attacks, which the government is covering up, or at least the news media, and he doesn't know why. And those who believe that maybe revenge could be the answer on how to cope with all this trauma, he recruits them, right? Like his offering is like, I can't give you peace, but I can make you something holy and terrifying, and I can get you revenge. But I can't get you peace because that requires this other thing called forgiveness, and that's way, way past where you're at. So the Kill Journal then becomes this story of this band of survivors who are now hunting these revenants down. And this St. George, who's this half-mad preacher, leads this pack. His congregation and child was butchered by a revenant. And at that point, he felt like he had been divinely called to stop them. Though how divinely is the question, right? And so his church essentially had become their training grounds, if you will. And he keeps a record called the Kill Journal, which is like this old Catholic Bible that he's gutted and takes notes on. And the book itself is a leather-bound graphic novel edition, which has this really cool design, a la an old Catholic Bible. And so the cool way you're reading the book And in the story, the guy is writing the book you're reading, to get a little meta, Chris. And so that's the tale. And what's cool is that we have each of these characters who've been brought into the club all were a survivor and had been attacked by a different revenant. And revenants are cool because they have their own origin to them, right? One of our revenants, a guy named Mr. Crispy, who was this homeless veteran who people pulled a prank on. They shoved his pocket full of fireworks. They blew up and he died in the burn unit, right? And then came back looking for revenge. And he looks kind of half between a mummy and a G.I. Joe. And he touches, he sets on fire. And it's like, this guy was a victim, he was maybe in a dark place as well. And then being victimized just pushed him over the edge, right? And now he's back as this revenant. But what's cool, because they're a spiritual problem, you can't just shoot them, right? Or they come back for the sequel, they come back around, they seem to show up again, because you got to solve this spiritual problem. Which, in this, maybe the easiest terms for people like with Jason Voorhees, you got to take him back to Camp Crystal Lake, right? Where it all began. And it's the same kind of thing, that they have to solve this problem while fighting this monster they totally cannot defeat in direct combat, who then always wants to get in direct combat with them. So they're always bloody and messy, trying to find answers while this thing they can't directly kill is hunting them. I think I loved that idea of what these revenants could be. Is it's like you're facing a threat who wants to come at you with a machete or a chainsaw or a fire, but you can't beat that person up. But they're always coming for you, and you have to find the other solved, right? You have to figure out their mystery, their backstory, and then build some sort of booby trap, if you will, or trap that will solve that or end that spiritual problem, so you can kill this thing.
It's really just I like kind of going back to what you said. It's you get sequels to horror movies, you just get sequels in general, but very rarely do you pick up usually sequels like years later or just a continuation of story. It's kind of interesting how you put it, like what happens directly after the basically the horror itself.
Right. And I think that with any of my stories, Chris, I think we talked about this with the 8th too, I always try to find two things, like what's like the human emotional arc, and then what's the fantastical, right? And in this case, right, the human arc is like they're really trauma survivors, right? And they have all the quirks of trauma survivors, right? Like in the opening, the second page of the first issue, Sydney, she's going into this church, but she makes sure she puts a knife in her pocket. Like, who brings a knife into a church?
Oh yeah.
Well, somebody who the last time they went into a dark place, their friends got cut to pieces. That's who brings it, and they have those elements that any trauma survivor is going to have. And it also when dealing with trauma, you also have to kind of fight the demons on the inside. So that's like our beating heart, right? Is these people, because some of them feel that they're to blame for it. Maybe they were in a place they shouldn't have been. Maybe they did something they shouldn't have. It triggered something that they didn't deserve, but it maybe is part their fault. And then the fantastical is these revenants, right? And so you get these two, you get a fantasy element and then a strong, gut-wrenching sort of human side to it. Is hopefully what the Kill Journal brings to you. And then it's in and of itself becomes a horror tale, right? Because now you're in that world.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm not a horror guy. It just never has been a genre that really appealed to me, even though I do look at some of the reading that I do, and it's more on the darker side. Reading, I don't know, maybe it's just the motion pictures or movies, I guess, type deal. But this was very interesting. The bit I got to see was intriguing. The artwork was very interesting. Really enjoyed it. And I'm glad I get to talk to you about it, because I had questions about it. It seems like, is that different snippets from the book itself, or is it just like the first 10 pages of the first book?
That's the first 10 pages right there that I had sent you in advance. So it's like that's the first half or first portion of issue 1.
Okay.
Right.
That it makes me want to read what you the one before that. What would you call it? The eighth.
The eighth.
Yeah, it makes me want to read that because now I'd like to see where they got those points. It's an interesting way to start it out. I liked it. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, I wanted to start it like I try to start most stories right at the heart of the disaster, right? Yeah. And then so that you don't get too bogged down in backstory, etc. But you can start right in what's compelling. And the same thing with the 8th as well. But with this, it starts right at like the night St. George's congregation was butchered, and then it's 1 year later, and it's him recruiting people. But I agree. Like I think horror stories are tricky. Like some people are a fan of it, and some people are not.
Yeah.
And I think what's fun about horror comic books is they can be a little broader because if you're saying they're not using the sound and suspension tools of TV or film, right?
Yeah.
The horror functions different. In the same way, like when you say you read a dark book, I love Joe Abercrombie books, these like grimdark fantasy books, and they're dark and crazy. But maybe if you watched it, it would be too much, right? In some ways, with all the sound. And so, like a horror comic book is kind of fun because it takes the edge, that sort of like suspense, jump scare edge out.
That might be what it is. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah.
And so I mean, there's not a lot of them made, but so as a result, like you kind of live in the characters of it a bit more. At least I think. Yeah. So maybe I could convince you, to take it again or more. But there's more to it than maybe the slasher film. But I think that also too, like by trying to ground it as much in like these are their real problems, that hopefully it has emotional appeal beyond just like there's people getting killed, and, that there's actually heart in it.
I definitely think that's where you have your horror tropes like everyone, we go back to, Scream that points out all the different tropes of a horror movie and the cliches and things like that. But, when it comes to horror stories, your Stephen King's, your Joe Hill's, and in case your book as well, it's the characters and their backgrounds. Like, I think that's the thing that hooked me when reading it. I just want to know about these characters and not just necessarily the trauma that they've been through, but what were they before? I think that's what made, initially The Walking Dead so successful. It was very successful as the comic, but the show initially was successful just because of the characters. I think the show kind of got a little bit in over its head a little bit with too many characters trying to keep track of. But I think that's what will makes your book hit a good mark, is that you're trying to understand not just the characters, but this idea of trauma. Like you're saying, it's a very real thing. It's maybe, like you said, it's the fantastical in the sense of a massacre, recovering from understanding that, but people deal with trauma every day in different ways. So I like that that's a focus of your book and understanding it.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned The Walking Dead, because I think I remember when I was reading that first trade years ago, it had one of the finest moments I'd ever read in a comic book, and this is Kirkman's, I guess, his magic, right? Is remember at the end of it, which they didn't have this sequence in the TV show, which always was so sad. I mean, they emulate it in other ways, but not like this. Where in the graphic novel, the friend who was involved with the wife, he doesn't make it past the first volume. He gets killed by the son. And what happens is there's this moment where it's been found out about the affair, and the friend, who's a / police officer, comes charging in anger, and the little boy shoots him and kills him. And the little boy's crying, and his dad comes to hug him, and he says, "Dad, it's different when they're a person and not a zombie." Right? Yeah. And it ends the first volume, and it was this really like profound moment of this lesson, right? Of like between you eat food and it comes from animals, you don't think about it, but it's the same thing kind of with zombies, right? They're a mindless thing, but it's like, oh, here's what really actually killing somebody is. It's harrowing, and this boy felt it, and hopefully I can capture some of that sort of energy with it. And then I think from an art standpoint, have this really amazing artist, Jason Krager, who worked on back in the day at Top Cow books on Witchblade and on the Darkness, and also on Evangeline.
I knew his art looked familiar. And the Darkness, as soon as you said it, I said, "Yep, that's where I know him from."
Yeah, and he's he's such a great storyteller as well, and it's the best because he calls me every day, and he's like, Adam, I think this panel is gonna work. This doesn't work right. Or we need to do it this way. Or Adam, what do you think about this? Or I repitch it back to him. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. I just needed to get my headspace around it, and it's like there's this really awesome collaboration with him, and his lines are, like the book. I wish you could see it in black and white. It almost stands without coloring because he does so much, and his line work and etc. That because some work, like for example with the 8th, when you pull the color out of it, it's really clean. It's very simple, and you add the color and it pops. But with this, it's almost in some ways like the black and white is almost more gripping. Those Steve's colors are amazing, but there's a lot to it, and there's this really cool collaboration with him and with creating with an artist like that the story becomes better. And also too, one thing that he and I talked about is how do you preserve tension, right, in a book, especially a comic book, right? How do you make it tense? Greg, when was the last time you read a comic book that made you feel tension?
Oh yeah. I couldn't tell you. I mean, actually, I really couldn't tell you.
It's a tricky thing to create this sensation of tension, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always our question: is like, how do we build tension into the panels? From the way we lay them out, to the content of them, to what's in the foreground and what's in the background. And that's really really cool discussion of building this, and how like you present a threat in a horror story. You present a threat, and then you walk away from it a little bit with little reminders to keep the tension up, and then you face it in some way, right? And I would try to build this sensation of this roller coaster of you learn about a threat, and then it's foreboding, and then it hits you. So, and I think also too with this book also, I think with same thing with the 8th, but with this one even more so, I wanted to make, from a campaign standpoint, the book a piece of art, right? Which is why we did the leather bound hardcover edition of it, right? So that, because the one thing, though floppies are great, the one thing floppies aren't is, you don't want to hold them and like sit them on your shelf and go, in the same, right? In the same way, like I have Lock and Key, the Master Edition, one of my favorite series, by the way, horror series. You mentioned Joe Hill earlier. He's the best, right? Just the best. Boy, that TV show was a letdown. But it's I wanted to create something that was, you could feel the art, because comic books are art, is that like just sitting on your shelf, it had a message, right? Just sitting on the table, it felt like something, which is also why we created this mask, this Revenant mask. And it's this cool, it's what I would use on set, for in a film or TV show. It's this high quality, resin mask that's custom hand painted, and you can wear it. It's got pads in it.
Now you're talking Greg's language.
I heard mask and saw my ears like, huh? What? Huh?
He's a big mask collector.
Yeah.
Oh, are you, Greg? Really?
I like helmets.
What is your favorite mask? What's your favorite mask you got?
The favorite one that I have is probably probably my Black Series, the Stormtrooper, up in the corner there. I don't know if you can see it with the webcam.
I can.
Here. Yeah, probably that one. Just because
amazing
mask. Yeah,
fair enough. Hence why you probably like the Mandalorian, because it's got some very good helmet work.
I do have a Mandalorian mask as well, but it's not as nice. So, but it's very nice. It was made by a person, not by a company. So it's
Yeah, fair enough. But that's what we wanted to add as well too, because it's like you can get this leather-bound book and it feels cool and it's a story, and then it's like, how do you take it one step farther, right? You build the mask, right? And what's cool, like you're saying, with helmets and masks, is they're an art piece. So they're like a sculpture, right? You can put them on the wall, on like yourself. You can put it on the wall behind you or on the mantle. But what's cool about a mask is it goes one step farther, because then you can wear it, And when you put this thing on, it's like COVID is afraid of you as well as your friends, and so
Yeah.
you solve all kinds of problems, and you feel like somebody should just give you a machete. And that was a way to kind of take the art one more step farther, right? That it came off the page and you had the mask.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, but I agree that in my TV show Escape the Night, every season I had multiple masks for various monsters and things. And I'm like you, Greg. It's just like, oh, the mask or the helmet. It just does something, right?
It can make you feel like a completely different person. It's insane. I don't know why. Maybe it's just, I don't know. That's just me. I love it. Like, I feel so cool. I walk around with my stormtrooper helmet and my wife picks on me. But
that's awesome, right?
Yeah.
No, but I agree. There's something special to that, and we wanted to create that. And I think that's a fun thing. Once again, about crowdfunding comic books, and not that there's anything wrong with the big two. Those are great comic books too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's fun is that people are trying to do odd and different and unique things to make it more of an experience versus maybe just getting a floppy. They're trying to give you an experience,
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is what's really really special about crowdfunding books. And you get a little closer touch to the artist. You get a shirt, you get a mask, you get a hardcover, something. You get whatever it is they've put together. And not just me, but many other great creators out there. And it's why I'm 100 deep myself in books backed.
Yeah.
This is one of them. This is Knights vs. Pirates here,
Mm-hmm.
which is like another graphic novel I backed the other day that just arrived. And it's cool, right? To like have the shirt and the beanie for the band before they were popular.
Right.
It's great to have Spider-Man too, but it's sometimes fun to be like, oh no, dude. This is the good stuff right here.
Yeah.
It's not mainstream yet. It's not. I'm seeing the band at the little bar or the little club before you knew about them.
That's right.
So,
you're there at the beginning. You're the person listening to that soundtrack, the song on the soundtrack that wasn't popular on the radio until a couple years later. That's what it is. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I think that's what's so fun about indie collecting, right? Is you can still get that feeling, right? And not saying that Greg Capullo's art isn't bad. I mean, it's really love to see it. His art is amazing to watch as well. But it's like get that taste. And so with the Kill Journal, those are kind of the offerings, right? You can get the 11. You can get the digital issues, like we did with the 8th. And as soon as the campaign ends, you start collecting them once a month, like you were at the shop, right? And I think what's cool about that is a lot more people have become used to reading digital comic books, especially with Webtoons and Tapas and these other platforms. People started to accept that a bit more, and I think it's good, right? Because it's cool to get about that way. Then there's the leather bound, and then we offer a cool T-shirt, and then also the mask, and the but there's what we're trying to do right now is we have these mini stories, because one thing, like I said, I didn't like to get too bogged down in backstory before it begins. I love stories that launch you right into it, and then the backstory you uncover along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And each of these people who are attacked, of our main 4 characters, you learn a bit about the knight when they were attacked along the way, and you flesh out their backstory. But these in the back of the graphic novel, there's this dossier section where St. George has kept like a record of each of these survivors and the night they were attacked.
Right.
And so those little 6-page stories, we're unlocking them. There's 4 of them. We've unlocked the first one, and we're close to getting the second one unlocked. And they blow out that moment. And I felt that when I was reading Headlocker. I don't know if you guys are fans of the comic, but at the end of volume 3, they had these little stories that were done by different artists and different writers. Mm-hmm. And I just loved that. And so these mini stories that we're unlocking are done by a different writer than myself, a different artist than Jason, different colorist. That one just gives you a different feel, right? It's the world told through somebody else's letters and lines, and but also after you've taken this ride with the main characters and you finish the story, then it's like, oh, I'm reading that little backstory piece, 6-page piece, and I understand them better,
Right.
without it having to slow down the main story.
Well, you bring up a point. I'm I'm a collector of physical omnibuses but not like everything because I do subscribe to DC Universe, Marvel
Oh,
Unlimited and things like that. It's nice having that so I can read the stories. I'll always have that with it. But the reason I like I particularly look for omnibuses is why I look forward to Blu-rays and different editions of those is because of the extras. I like seeing the sketches. I like seeing the backstories of how things are created, and a lot of those you don't have that unless you particularly download like something like that on Comixology. That's the
sure.
closest thing you can get, but on either other services you just get the singles, and that's what sometimes people just want. They want the stories, but as you
Totally.
know, me and my show, it's just that's why I like having those physical big books because it's not just the stories; it's they give you something extra. And you're right because I was just looking back at what I've backed recently with stuff. I've backed the curse words coming out in omnibus, Scott Snyder and Tony Daniels, Nocturna
Yep.
first issue and the hardbound with that. So I mean, I
Which
you're
was very
right.
depressing, Chris, because I wish that Scott Snyder was doing more witches
He
instead of
said
this
he
Nocturna. I was like, dude, I was wanting more witches, and then you got this crazy story. Come on.
he
Anyway,
is saying there is more witches coming.
yeah,
He has said that. It's just I think he is finally getting a chance to step away from DC and start doing a little bit more. And this was his first entry point to do that. But you're right. Like you have a lot of creators, like Sean Murphy. He just
love
did
him.
with plot holes at that point. He's in the middle of doing that and wrapping that up on Indiegogo. Yeah, you've got a lot of these big names. Like yeah, they can go to Image, they can go to other independent ones, but they want to where they can own their product, but they just want to do it for themselves to kind of get back to the passion they have. And I think that's where you're doing like, this is mine. I control it. I can give something to the fans and give that interaction, which is really cool to have that ability to give the fans something that no one else can have. Like you
That's
give them
right.
that thing and saying, even with a lot of stuff saying, yeah, this might be out there in the market, but you're going to get that one version of it that only people who backed it. And that's something that's appealing to me as a collector.
And
I agree with that. I mean, because Sean Gordon Murphy's book Plot Holes, of course, I backed that day one. I loved what he did with Batman and the Wake, and I've been Tokyo Ghost, and I agree. It's like I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for that. I got the artist version, as well, because it's like, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I just thought this was work. Like, I just want to hold that, flip through those pages, and you're right. And I can't get that in a mainstream setting, which once again I agree with you. 80% of the fans are just in it for that, right? And there's
Which
nothing
is
wrong with
fine.
that.
Totally fine.
That's it's totally right. I don't need to downplay it, but it's just like, ooh, from people like us, we're like, yeah, that's it.
yeah,
Ooh, yeah, get me that piece there. So, yeah, no, but I'm working on my Scott Snyder forgiveness after that. Not witches. I was just like, I remember went to that page and like, oh, Scott Snyder's doing a book. I'm like, oh, of course he's doing more witches. And I went to it and I was like,
Not yet.
I am so disappointed.
yeah. Oh well, it's funny you talking about collecting because Chris knows me. It's funny. Me and Chris both love to collect great stories and comics, but I'm a guy that instead of paperbacks and omnibuses, I like to have individual copies. Like
Mm.
if it's a 24 book run, I want all 24 books, and I want the first edition, first cover. Like that's just what I don't know why. It's something in my head, and it's something about turning the pages and feeling it in your hands and seeing it. I've tried so hard to go to digital comics, and I know that eventually I'm going to have to really intake as much stuff as I want to, because it's just way more affordable. But I just can't let go of the feeling of a comic. I feel better when I'm holding an individual comic book and reading, and I fit complete the story. I'm like, okay, bam, there you go, and I'll pick the next one up. I don't know. It's something with me with that. I can't explain it.
Yeah. I know it depends. I agree with you. I did the Wailing Blade on Comixology recently, and then they coming out, of course, with the hardcover on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. I forget which one, and I immediately backed it. But I was like, man, I'm gonna get through this on Comixology. It's just not as satisfying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's just like I liked, and it was good. It was great. It's a great book. In fact, that's why I bought the hardcover. But I agree. You don't get like, put it down on the stack and go, yeah.
But I will tell you where I do Comixology, and I've already got on my wish list, because at the end of the year they always have the big blowout sale, like everything's like up to like 70-80% off. My next probably big purchase, just because there's way too many volumes of it and it's just not affordable, because is the IDW run of TMNT, which I just hear is just outstanding, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And
yeah, I'm a total Turtles fan, yeah.
And so, in that route, something that's not affordable, but I can get the same collection that they do sell for half the price at that point. And that's helped me in the sense of, okay, I'll, like we said, I'll do digital in that sense to get that, because I want to have those stories. I've heard so many good things about it, and being a Turtles fan as a kid at that point, this is a way to, as we say, bring the Turtles weren't ever kid friendly, and so they are continuing that tradition. So
you see, and I love that, right? I love that. The Turtles are, at least that's a story I've really enjoyed, the reimaginings that have occurred. Yeah.
You know what I would love for every comic book to do that I could totally go digital with, and this is kind of cheating on actually being like a comic or reading. If you could get any comic book you wanted to in a stop motion, like have you ever seen the Iron Man Extremist stop motion comic? It was a Netflix thing a few years ago. Like, I love that kind of animation where it's pictures and stuff from the pages, but it's got a little motion to it, and it's just absolutely beautiful.
Oh yeah, motion comic.
The whole story. Yeah. Love it. I wish I could get I wish you just had an option for each comic to be like, I want to watch this in stop motion. Just kind of sit back and it'd be so awesome.
See, that's, I do these animatic videos for each of my crowdfunding campaigns, right? And we essentially do that kind of motion comic experience with voice and et cetera. And I'm with you too. Like, I love that. I remember when they did this, they was like kind of popular for a minute to do them, right? And I was like, and I loved that, right? Reagan was like, why did that go away? Because it was so cool, right?
Yeah.
To get that feeling, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to put out about the Kill Journal, or just?
We'll definitely put that in the show notes, a link to the Indiegogo campaign, so that way the listeners can go check it out. And it's up there. The campaign's 22 days as of recording right now, so it'll be 21 days when it drops tomorrow morning. But definitely in. How can they get their hands? I know the campaign's over for the 8th at that point. How can they get their hands on the 8th for those that want to check that out?
So for the 8th, there's two ways to go about it. So we have a pre-order store where you can go on and do the pre-order, and I can send you the link.
Perfect.
Or if you back the Kill Journal on a hard copy level, you can add on the 8th.
Okay.
And in fact, of our 300 backers so far, probably 25% have added on the 8th, and so which is great to see. But yeah, so those are the two ways to go about it, getting it right now. And if you do the pre-order on the hardcover for the 8th, you get an email right away with that catches you up on all the digital issues, and then you get in the circulation you get the monthly. But that's the best way to go about it. And I'll send you the link to the pre-order store. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'll include it in the show notes because I want to check that out. So, cool.
Yes. Yes.
Well, all right, man.
No, and what I have to say too, you're a perfect example. I mean, like you said, you got your hands in so many different things: TV, comics, writing, all this stuff. This is a perfect example. As I'll always go back to what Kevin Smith has said, like, just get your thing out there. Don't wonder, like you were talking about, like it when you hit that start of the campaign. Oh my gosh, did we do it right? Things like that. But you did it. And that's what I want to say to anyone who's our listeners out there saying, hey, I want to start this. Just as he said, and that's what inspired me to do World's Finest True Believers when I heard him say that, is just get it out there and make sure. He says, doesn't matter if you only get 5, 2, 3 lists, you got to start somewhere. And because if you don't get it out there, no one's going to know it, only except for you. And so just take that chance, take that first leap. And you know what's the worst that could happen? It's not as successful, but guess what? You did it. You put something out into the world that like 9 other people out of 10 people wouldn't have the guts to do.
That's right.
100% agree.
That's what. Yeah, I think the three of us are all products of that, right? Taking like I'm going to go for it, and let's see what happens. Yep.
Ends up being a fun time, usually.
Yeah.
You know?
It ends up being the best time, right, Greg?
All right, cool. Well, all right. Well, let's go ahead and go on to our next topic then. Adam, you're going to hang around with us, right?
Oh, as long as you'll have me.
Hey, man, the whole show. So,
yeah.
you're here.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, cool. Before we do that, though, let's go ahead and take a break. We're going to put some ads in for the audio section of the show. Podcast will drop, well, I'll say tomorrow morning, but I guess I could say this morning if you're listening to the audio. So just give us a few seconds. We don't choose the ads. We just choose a spot. Volume can be a little loud sometimes as the ads come in, but we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So, like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, always podcast magic. So, don't have a whole lot to talk about this evening. We got. Well, actually, we do have one really big topic. We're going to save that for last, and we got kind of a just a thought for the middle one here. We're going to talk Mandalorian. Star Wars Alliance, and Katie and Nathan been doing a great job covering the Mandalorian as it comes out on Sundays. Check them out. I know the first one was Sunday. The second one was last week. But yeah.
Or the Mandalorian, also known as the Great Gina Carano Show. That's also its other secret name.
She hasn't shown up yet this season, and we're still waiting for that.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah, you know it's going to happen, right? I mean, it's got to. They've already confirmed.
Oh, we've seen it in the trailer, so her and Carl Weathers come walking out, so we know it's happening.
Right.
I know, we're waiting.
Yeah. I haven't had an opportunity to watch the third episode yet. But what we're going to do is, are y'all caught up all the way?
I have a single issue. I don't have number 2. Or episode.
Okay.
I've got 3, but again, I'll hold up or whatever.
Spoil away. Spoil away.
No.
I'm
gonna stay away from number 3 because number 3, you say spoil. I was literally putting in the chat this morning to our buddy Nathan and in the group chat on Twitter. It's just like, I seriously got nerd excitement and just like giddiness by what I saw on screen, and words and names that were uttered that I never thought we'd ever hear or see in live action. I do not and will not take away that from both of you.
Okay, that's cool. Well, then we'll just talk episodes 1 and 2 then.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this show blew me away the first season. It was really amazing. Did you watch the documentary series of the making of it?
I did. Yep.
Wasn't that amazing?
And it was really amazing, and I think that that discussion, working in television, comes up endlessly of like, hey, can we do this like how the Mandalorian did? With all of the digital backgrounds and digital characters and all that work with the LED screens. It's terribly expensive and complicated, but to create the world that they have, I don't think there's any other way to do it before it became impossible, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, their budgets are they're spending $15 million an episode, which is about 5 times a regular TV show.
Oh yeah.
So,
well,
it's spectacular.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's just stunning. The show is, and I think I was always hoping it was going to be like this dramatic piece, because in season 1 you're like, is this going to be some candy corn thing? And then episode 1 you're like, okay, it's not.
Right.
It's gonna be badass. Okay.
Well, for me, it's a show that I don't think that I can look at an episode that I was disappointed in. I mean, of course, this is only the chapter 11 or was it chapter 12 this week? It was one of the two. I can't remember. I haven't seen one that's disappointing so far. I've been really excited. I've heard complaints on online, other people talking about it being kind of the same exact thing every episode. He wants to go do this, then he gets stopped, and he has to go do this, and then it ends, and you go to the next episode. But
you could say that about a lot of the shows. I mean, again, shows are a lot of shows when it comes down to even the best ones have formulaic. Some of my favorite shows of all time, they do a lot of awesome things, but when you break it down at some point, and you can, there's certain formulas and certain beats you have to hit. I mean, we've got a TV writer right here. There's just certain things like you kind of fall into certain traps just because you have to, but you could put your own spin on it. And if you want to really cut at the heart of the people at that point. Oh, they've done that before. Well, guess what? A lot of people have done it before. We'll go back to that old South Park episode where they said the Simpsons did it. You know, of course.
Yeah.
You know, but it's that really. They're not wrong, but it's just like you're missing the point.
And it's a really heavy thing to pick on too. I mean, because what else? I mean, like you said, you have to follow certain terms. I mean, there are only so many problems that are going to happen. It's the twist and the little things you put into it and the dedication you put into it that makes it different. But a lot of stories are the same. I mean, virtually there's, I don't know. Well, I don't want to speak out of turn around. I was going to say there's probably only like 10 actual different story plot lines you can go with, and everything's kind of based off of those tropes. But there's probably way more than that. So I'm speaking out of text here. Out of context.
But I think you're right though. You know, in any storytelling process, whatever it is, it always ends with two things. There's an objective and an obstacle.
Yeah.
Right. That's all drama is. It's only those two things. And so the Mandalorian, I think, is sometimes maybe that comment comes out because he's such a kind of a silent man of action, and a faceless man of action. You know, and so as a result, he's very much like, I'm going to go do this thing. You get stopped. I got to go do this next thing. You know. Which is, it's kind of any story or any movie is an tension and an obstacle, and so, but I agree that they are less sleuthy about hiding that in the series, but I think I'm okay with it too, right? Like I don't think that I'm upset by it.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I definitely this is just things I've heard people say online. I think it's great. I didn't, but it is an interesting thing to point out, and like Chris was saying, I can see what they're saying, but I mean, come on, like really, like you said there's really two points, the objective and the obstacle, right?
Well, it's this whole Star Wars was started just like a lot of, we could point to so many different fantasy sci-fi stories in this case that are all based on Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, and so when it comes down to it, yeah, that's we borrow a lot from it, and so many different writers and shows and movies borrow from it just because it's a good place to start. The question is, what are you going to do that brings not necessarily something new to it, but what is the unique about that character's journey? And that's what intrigues me about the show. Okay, yeah, I mean, I could relate it to video games for crying out loud. Yeah, I'm going to go on side quests and things like that, and then eventually I'm going to go back to my main story. I mean, that's how this show plays to me, is like, oh, you're going to get side quested, you're going to get, stopped along the way, and then we'll get back to the main journey. Now, this recent episode, we hit back to our main story and we hit it hard. We're back on the main story again.
Good
so
deal. I can't wait to watch it and watch this and really go with this. It's great.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean, there's some reveals. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you good.
No, I'll let you take it. You had better thoughts than I.
Highly doubt that.
But well, before I want to ask you, Adam. As a writer, you hear people say comments like that. Just are we right in our assessment? Just saying like there's certain things that you kind of do depending on what you're trying to get at, and there's more to it than just not borrowing from what's been done before.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's oftentimes what happens in a story whereas in its simplest terms, Michael Bay has a movie with lots of explosions, and critics say, I hate this. But a lot of people who filled the seats came for that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So lots of times the thing that people are commenting that they dislike about a series is the thing actually that other people came for.
Mm-hmm.
And so with any tale, you can't get everybody happy along the way, right? And so what they're like, it bugs me that it's just this path of these obstacles, whereas there's probably 8 people to the left of them going, that's kind of what works for me.
Right.
So who's right in that conversation, right? The squeaky wheel or the one who was okay with it? And so, and now the question to ask yourself, I think, as a writer, as a creative, is: are you doing something where you are not reinventing your format in the sense that, like, there's going to be an intention and an obstacle, but are you reinventing the way we get into that in a way that makes it feel special or lends new insight? If every episode is, he's got to kill this guy. Oh, this guy stopped him. Next episode, I'm going to kill that guy. And then he stops him. You might feel a little like, hey, guys, I mean, let's start getting more creative. So I feel that that's what can happen from a creative standpoint, is like, you got to follow your rules, but you have to also shed new light on them each time. Or yes, you can be getting called out as saying, hey, you're doing the same thing.
True, that kind of reminds me of like what Smallville would fall into in the first season, season and a half, with the Freak of the Week. At that point, it became the big joke.
I was gonna say the Flash on CBC.
Yep.
Like I do like the show, but it did have its moments where it's like, oh, okay,
Yep. The CW is prone to that from an executive note standpoint, right? Like, they build their shows around this like Smallville model of the Freak of the Week, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't. But it's like, how it's going to happen in the cold open. In the teaser, we're going to get this mystery reveal that like tease up this freak, right? And then, we're going to meet them, and then we're going to battle them, and then we're done. And it's just like, they just didn't switch that up for 22 episodes. Mm-hmm. And so it was just like, well, it's got 22 teasers where it's like, wait, there was a meteorite left over we didn't see. It's like, oh man. Yeah.
I think that's the issue. Is just too many episodes per season with those.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah,
that's why I hope that whenever they get started early, they don't do that. Start early, because I enjoy, for me, if you're watching a show like that, anywhere from 8 to maybe 15 episodes is right in the wheelhouse, or right where you want to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So. And I think that's why we've said it. I've said it before. Is like your Black Lightnings. Your even to some extent, Legends is basically half a season. Mm-hmm. Half your 22 at that point. I'm not watching anymore, but I think on those shows you eliminate what you hate, Greg, or filler episodes. You're willing to accept a few filler episodes here or there, but you wanna get that. And I think Mandalorian being these 2 seasons being 8 episodes, there is no real time for filler, unless like what would feel like a filler, like from episode 2 into this one, into the recent one. There is a reason for this. Yes, it's a story point to get the hero into the next part, but it's not just a throwaway. Just like I have a feeling we have not seen the last of the Marshal at that point. I don't see him as the one-off.
Definitely not. Yeah, definitely not. I can't remember what it was I was talking to about Katie, where I saw something and I said that pretty much guarantees a return. I can't remember what we were talking about, but yeah, it's definitely going to return. Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think that is part of the charm of, when you're making something on Disney Plus, you're not making it to create time. So you have a broadcast network, they need to fill a certain amount of time so they can sell ads against it, right? And so each 1 hour episode gives you this, and if you have a good viewing block, you run it for 22 episodes. And so there is a concept of filling time, whereas when you're on Disney Plus, or maybe you're working with Netflix or Amazon, they don't need to fill anything because people have already paid them. Right. You know what I mean? What they're trying to do is just give you the story that's the most compelling. And I think it changes the world when you don't have to fill 22 episodes. You're like, great, we get 8 episodes where we can have lots of change happen in one episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's changed the viewing, the way people view things completely. And I think that's why people got into binging so much, because you can get that one story without all the filler in a day if you want to, some seasons and stuff. But I don't know, I like Mandalorian being the weekly drop. And I think that we're going to see more stuff going back to the weekly drop, because the same reason the Mandalorian said they were doing that is that, instead of it being something that's talked about for 2 weeks, have it something that's talked about for 8-9 weeks, because it's progressing as it goes. I think they're going to get more back into that kind of model, because things always change like that. But I don't know. What do y'all think?
No, I think you're right about it, Greg. Working on the TV side is that, same thing with Game of Thrones or The Mandalorian. If you're going to do 8 big budgeted, super expensive, kill 'em all episodes, right? That you're really trying to build hype and to build conversation offline. And shows such as The Mandalorian or Game of Thrones have that kind of power, right? To like, Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix, that's not going to be front page every week like The Mandalorian is. Oh, what happened there?
Right.
it's a comedy. It's light, and we're through it, and it's fine. But that kind of content is, it's moving a community, and so the weekly drop is meaningful because it lets all of that breathing time for the fans to participate, which is, I think, something that Netflix's model runs differently just because of how they work globally, and they have a different machine. But I think for everyone else, the weekly drop is going to be more the thing, so that the community can get involved.
I think you'll actually find I feel like people will get involved in more. I don't know about that. I'll say more different things, because you'll have this night to watch this and this and this and blah, blah, blah. But I guess it would actually probably equal up to be about the same as far as the different types of content or how much content you can take. It just changes the game up, Like I said, it gives you that thing to talk about at work. I know I got a few friends at work that are huge Star Wars fans, and I love talking to them about Mandalorian, Clone Wars, all kinds of good stuff, I got a guy who's running through the Clone Wars series right now, and I just recently ran through it in the last year, and it's just fun to talk about that kind of stuff, and I guess definitely can't binge that all at once, but yeah, I mean, I enjoy the weekly model. It sounded bad at first because you want to see it all right away, but I like having to wait, Patience is good.
I agree. It's the weekly conversation in between that really that really is the value of it, I think, too.
Yeah. I believe patience is a Jedi trait. So
there it is. It is a Jedi trait.
So all right, let's talk about the first two episodes then. How was the opening for y'all? Like, for me, it felt like it just walked straight from the last episode right into this one, and I guess it did kind of, because I guess it's just in chapters and there was no break. It's not season 2. It's just the next chapter in the story. For me, a show, I want to see a great opening and a great closing of every show. And you don't want to have the Titan syndrome where you build up, and then just have such a disappointing finale. But
that's putting it nicely.
Putting it very nicely. That's right. But I love the way it opened up, man. Like I said, it felt just like that. It felt like I had just got done watching season 1, even though I didn't rewatch it before too. Like, just walk right into it.
Yeah, I'm a little different than that way. That I appreciate a little bit. I don't know if the word recap is, but I think that there's a nice chance at the beginning of a new season to just give like a new point of view, a new perspective into, and so. And granted, I agree. I wasn't mad that it just continued on, right? Like, I mean, I wasn't. I don't think that you're like, this is garbage. But it's like, oh, maybe there could have been an interesting opportunity to connect different dots or see it in a different way instead of just a linking of the chapters. Though maybe that's Favreau's vision, right? Is that he wants it to feel like one long movie, if you will.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I enjoyed the idea that we continue on, but it's almost, again, we had such a, you end a finale with the huge reveals, and we lose some characters, we gain some entry points of some new characters at that point, but now it's kind of like, okay, we're back to the Mandalorian alone with the child, with the task of finding a way to get him to his kind, at that point. So, we built up a cast, now we're back to being alone. I kind of talk about like Alien at that point. So unique about the very first movie of Alien was the singularity of the whole thing, and then you make it huge, a war in Aliens, and then they tried to rehash that in Alien 3, and back to the singularity of being alone and having a finite group at that point. But that's a whole different story for another time. But I did like that we got just focus on the Mandalorian, and then we had the Marshal. We didn't have a huge group, and yes, we had the townspeople and the Tusken Raiders, but it was just those two characters with the child, and I like that because you got a lot of. We'd never seen the Marshal unless you read the Aftermath book, and for those of us that didn't, like myself, I knew of him. I knew, I got an understanding of the character beforehand, but I like that they were able to build something that your mainstream audience doesn't know, and was able in one episode to have a huge community and say like, I want to see a spin-off show about him. I want to know more about him. Oh, there's a book. There's a chapter.
Right.
Couple, there's stories about the Marshal, but in the idea that Timothy Oliphant can just
He's
reach
so
in.
great.
He's so good, and he basically is channeling a little bit of his character Unjustified, but bringing some new dynamics to this. Because I love it. People say, "Man, he's an amazing. He should do this Marshall thing." Yeah, he did it for a number of seasons. You just didn't watch it.
It was awesome then. It was awesome there. Yeah.
So and Deadwood, and so he has a way of doing that. But I liked. At first, his character, I love the intro. It's like, oh my gosh, is he going to be an antagonist or is he going to work with Mando? And that was, I liked that kind of uneasiness originally. And then we got okay, it's not just you scratch my back and scratch yours. It was one of those like, it is a true partnership. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the growth I saw with Mandalorian. The Mandalorian was that he grew in the sense of it's not just the job, he is truly caring about certain things, and he can tell if someone's a good person or someone who is just trying to use him. Now sometimes he's able to tell that a little bit better than others, but I think that he for the most part can do a better job. But I'll leave that as a hint towards episode 3. Is like sometimes his judging meter is not on.
Okay. So I want to ask, with that being said, did you think that towards the end of episode 1 that he was going to give him the Marshal the armor back? Just based on really? Because like I kind of got that feeling. I was like, maybe he feels like this guy's earned it. He's gonna give it back to him. And he didn't. Like I said, what didn't make me mad? He didn't. But I thought that, and I was like, that might be an interesting twist on things. So
that the only reason I say that is just because of how much we saw him with the other Mandalorians at that point. This is the way, the armor and things like that, like how ingrained he is, and you will see that reaction again in episode 3.
Oh man, I won't.
Not episode 3, but
I know.
chapter,
what are we doing?
9, 10, 11. So in chapter 11, the third episode of the season, like that comes back again.
Okay.
And so that's why after going through that whole season, no, he was not going to let it, because again, his big thing is you are not of the clan. You are not of that. You're a good person. Mm-hmm. You mean well. I understand you didn't steal this. You bought it, but it is not yours to wield.
Makes sense. Yeah. What do y'all think of the crate?
And that's a cool thing.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No. You good? Thought.
That's one thing I love about though is like this is like in the way that like in Star Wars with a lightsaber, it's kind of like a katana, right, from the Japanese world. It's just passing on of this special sword, right? And it's cool that I love this thing just in general about the Mandalorian, the idea of this armor has meaning, right? And it's sacred in its way, and it stands for something. And I thought that was such a great way to build that through line that existed in the Star Wars films that had so much meaning, the Jedi and the passing of a lightsaber to being a Mandalorian and the passing of the armor, if you will.
Yeah.
It was, I think, a nice way to create that same theme through a very different world instead of Jedi's, Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. Well, I say all the time, the Mandalorian is proof that you can have a Star Wars story without Jedis and the Skywalker saga and everything else, and it be really popular and successful. I mean, it's just such a great story.
And that's where I think that Mandalorian is a great proof of concept that Star Wars and TV, I think, are going to be even stronger than the movies.
That's a pretty tall order.
It is, and I said let me kind of explain that. And I think I don't want to. The movies are going to be the movies at that point. Whenever we get back into theaters at that point, but the reason I say that is and people can come back at me and saying, well, that's TV in general. That's episodic. That's episodic streaming in general. I said, but I think you can tell these much more longer form stories than you are when you're constrained to a 2 hour to 2.5 hour movie at that point. And so that's why I say that Star Wars really, really lends itself to that, because how many books, how many comics have come out that have just greatly expanded this, and the movies can only do so much in taking little bits here or there from what's been already written and developed at that point. I think that's where Star Wars is really going to thrive, is this idea of TV. Now, again, they have to be careful, because what happened with the movies is that they thought they could do the Marvel way and drop it so much together, and they had an idea, but the problem is the writing and the quality and how the structure of it wasn't executed the right way. I think if they didn't think long term, they just thought, oh, it's Star Wars, they're going to like it, and I think that's putting it, not being fair in that sense. I think there was a little bit of that, but I think that the excitement got over their head, and I've already said this before, the sequels just didn't plan the ending and didn't have conversations with each other. But again, I've already said all that before, but I think this is where Star Wars can really get back on proper footing, is putting out these types of shows gives the people who are writing the movies like Taika and others a little bit of cover to say, okay, I can take the time to write a really good either one-off or a new trilogy to bring something new and move beyond the Skywalkers and bring something new. And this is why I think this has been such resonant with not just Star Wars fans, but new people who are just now coming into Star Wars saying, there's something more to this universe. And that's why I think even Star Trek, for right now, you got you on CBS All Access, you have Discovery, you have Lower Decks, comedy, but then you've got their new show with Christopher Pike that's coming. You've got the idea of Section 31, looking at the Black Ops to start. Again, this expands the idea at that point, and that Star Trek came from TV and then got the point of movies, so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I really feel that too, because I feel like of the new batch of films, that Rogue One was the one that I liked the most by quite. It was the only one that I think that I loved. I felt like the others, I was just like, I just sat in a theater and watched just missed opportunities. I was just trying to pay off old things, and I was just kind of in general sort of not moved by anything. But Rogue One, I was truly moved by, and I was like, man, this is going to be great. And I felt like that same thing too, Chris, is that when with the Mandalorian, we captured that same sensation in this really great universe without having to try and pay off Skywalker, not trying to have people floating in space, and all these kinds of things that maybe as you were trying to reach back so far, instead to accept what's in front of us.
Right. Well, and y'all bring up that great point. Is you have so much more time to flesh out a story whenever you can have it be episodic on a television series or on a streaming service as opposed to a movie. Because me personally, I would go to a movie theater and watch a 4-hour movie. If it's a director, put Zack Snyder's Justice League in the movie theaters. Just an example. Not saying it's the only one I would go see, but put a 4-hour movie in the movie theater. I'll set this time aside to go do that, and I'll go watch that movie in the movie theater. I don't mind that, and I get that most people are not like that. So it's better to tag them in a streaming service or a television series. But Chris, what you were saying about the Star Wars television possibly being or non-big screen possibly being bigger than the big screen. I started thinking about the latest movies that have come out, and I have more problems with Last Jedi and Rise of the Skywalker than I do with Mandalorian by far. Not to say that I don't dislike those movies or that they're not any good, but when you sit there, I try to put it like that and really quantify what's going on. I really do enjoy everything about the television series. There are a lot of things that I was really upset with about the movie series. Now, they could change that, and I don't know where they're going with the movies forward. But I feel like the things I didn't like were just because of what Chris said. They didn't have a solid plan that everybody was on page to follow with. I think had they done that, it would have turned out a little better, and maybe I'd feel differently about it. But I just have more problems with the movies right now than I do with television Star Wars, especially because I just watched Clone Wars too. So anything television Star Wars that I've watched in the last year has been absolutely amazing, and I can't say the same for the movies.
Well, say what you want. Again, I'll use Marvel and DC at that point. Say what you want about the MCU at that point. And again, they didn't get to this point until halfway through phase one, and the idea of like Kevin Feige, having a Kevin Feige that kind of ushers, kind of has has the idea saying, okay, you get to play with your toys. We're going to let you do some things, but we need you to hit a couple of beats. That's okay. And DC's doing a little bit in that sense. We haven't seen the full iteration of the plan moving forward, where you're going to have some things that are, you know, in a continuity sense, and you might have some things that aren't. That's okay too. But the idea, there's an understanding of where things stand. And I think that helps when you have someone or one or two, you know, two or three other people that are the stewards of that. Right. And that's what helps when you have people like Favreau and Filoni, that, you know, Filoni basically being a quote unquote the heir apparent of the new George Lucas at that point, the one who has all this knowledge and has a deep respect for it, but is not so he's beholden to it, but not one to a detriment where you have to be like that. It's more of just what will feel right, not just with the history, but what could be responsive at that point. And you've got Favreau with his creativeness and, as a fan, bringing something new and different that hasn't been out there before.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I agree. Gentlemen, I've got my executive calling me here from Netflix.
Okay,
give me a second call. I've got to jump in.
That's fine.
And get. And it's the craziest thing, because to be calling at 8:00 on a Friday night means somebody's mad.
Okay.
At the website. I can jump back on if you guys would like.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll jump off and take this, and then I'll text you back and say, hey, if you're still here, I'll jump on. Okay.
Let's join the call again. Yeah, but just let me know if you want to. I can send you an invite. Yeah, definitely, man.
All right. Hey, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in a bit. Bye.
All right, Chris. So let's talk about it, man. Let's keep talking about Mando because it's fun. Tell me about what you thought about the Crate Dragon, man. Like the design, like the character, like the challenge.
Yeah, it was just cool finally getting to see it. You know, the only time I've really seen it in kind of live action was playing Knights of the Old Republic. So I mean, just seeing it in a television form and kind of seeing, because even in the movies, all we heard was Obi-Wan doing the voice, and then we just saw kind of the bones of one that was dead on Tatooine. So,
to be truly honest with you, I had no idea that's what that was. Now, I've heard later that's what that was, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a really cool callback to that. But it just blows my mind that the way they've built this universe and like how many things are in. And you know, the funniest thing about it, I was thinking about it today, and I was like, Star Wars. Like, what is something new Star Wars that I've never seen that I'd like to figure out? You know what it is? How does every Star Wars movie start out? A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, right? How about right now in a galaxy far away? Let's see the Star Wars version of that. I want to see right now in a galaxy far, far away and see how they progress. Because as I'm watching Mandalorian today, I'm looking at everything, and it's amazing how everybody is so self-sufficient. Like, if you're a person who's going to fly through space, you're confident enough that you can crash your ship and repair it yourself and get into space and fly into space. There's nobody in the world, I think, is anywhere close to near that right now on our planet. You know, so you think about how far advanced that is a long, long time ago. So I want to see how far advanced they are, because even though they have all this technology and they have, you know, they're much more advanced than we are, they still have the same kind of issues. There's certain areas that still seem some kind of very, I don't want to say rural, but not advanced, not as civilized as you would think for having that kind of technology type deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, they say a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away to kind of put us in a frame of reference at that point. But they're struggling. You have, you know, take the Jedi at that point. You know, as I think it's Han Solo said, fancy religion and Okie magic tricks only get you so far in the galaxy, and that's his view of that. When he's got a ship that can take him anywhere in a blink of an eye at that point, and a blaster at his hand, that he doesn't need to, you know, sort things out at that point. You know, you've got like you said, you take our own ideas and put that in the same. Again, it's very relatable. You just put it in a different sense, and that's what good storytelling is about. Is just like that's how you make it relatable. Even in education, in my field, like how do you make something in history that's happened 150 years ago relevant to today? Relevant to students. Like, why does this matter? What is this? So what? So how can you make these stories like, yes, as Adam had talked about, like, you can go Michael Bay and go things blowing up at that point. Yeah, it's not necessarily relatable, but it's what people want to go and see. If you're gonna put people, not everyone wants to see a themselves necessarily. Oh, I want to see them paying bills. Not necessarily that, but they want to find a connection with someone in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I guess in some kind of way live vicariously through them, something you can't do, but you can relate to this character. So it makes I get that. Let's see, Mando. We're just in episode 1 right now. Oh, you know what? There's something. We'll just jump back and forth at 1 and 2, whatever we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's something I want to talk about, and it popped up in our chat, and Katie was talking about it, and at this point I hadn't seen the episode yet. So, but either way, I don't care about spoilers that much, so I just kind of looked online to see what it was talking about. And it's the Baby Yoda and the child and the egg situation. So it turns out it's a big controversy because people are calling it genocide, right?
I had only heard about it through Katie. I had not seen anything on my feed, and I jump on the feed every so often at that point, but not enough people, I guess, were putting it, at least on my timeline, that I had picked it up until Katie had said something.
Yeah. And like I said, I hadn't seen the episode yet, and honestly, I wouldn't have thought about anything like that until Katie said something. And I understand Katie's point, what she was talking about, and she even said she didn't realize it at that point either. But like I said, I looked it up, and apparently it's a big thing online, and Disney had to apologize. And I just want to know, though, it's not genocide, though, right? Because like the frog lady in this episode 2 even says her line, not her species. I think they say my line a couple times, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not heartless. I'm not saying that I want Baby Yoda ending somebody's line or eating shit. But the arguments ran along. They're unfertilized eggs, and it's the line, not the species.
Well,
so I don't know how you felt about that. Like, it's just a weird. I can see people being upset about it, but it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's why they pick up on it.
Well, I think they took the thing a little too far. Like, when I saw it, like, happen after the first time they did it, the second time they did it, a third time, I was like, okay, we get it. I think you kind of overplayed that joke. I think we got it. I think it would have been fine just doing it one time. Because it was shocking. It was one of those kind of shock laughs at that. But okay, that's probably not a thing he wants to be doing at that point. So,
I guess that makes sense.
But again, I understand, like you said, I understand perspective, and I don't want to get too personal or anything like that. So, in the idea of like, okay, it's, whatever you want to call it, last of the line, last of the species. I like I said, I think they just took it a little too far. I don't think saying I don't want to discount someone who feels that way, not be sensitive to their feelings, because I get that point. I get it personally. I understand that. And sometimes I'm willing to separate the art from the reality at that point, but I understand what it is. I think they just took it a little too far. It would have been interesting if it only happened once with with the child eating one of the eggs, and then that was it.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know if it would be as big of a deal, because it would be, oh, well, he can understand. He just sees food at that point. He sees something that's possibly something to eat. And now that they did 2 or 3 times, I was like, all right, either we've overdone the joke, and now it's looking like we're, like some people thought. I was like, oh my God, I wonder if she counted how many eggs she had in there, because I would have been ticked.
Right. Yeah. and like I said, I get that too. I feel like you're right. You're absolutely right. It was too many times, and I think that maybe had they done it one time, because I feel like they kind of had to do it one time. Not had to, but I think doing that set of precedents for him with the spider later. It just shows that he's a baby. He'll go grab, like you said, grab anything and eat. And maybe they didn't have to do it with the egg, but like I said, I don't want to be insensitive to people who feel that way. I don't necessarily feel that way, but I can understand people's thoughts on that. and I think the comments I looked at was Favreau was even saying it was just supposed to be a joke, and this and that, and
and I agree with him. I think that it's one of those things that sometimes, and welcome back, Adam.
Oh, well,
Hey, guys.
No,
I was waiting for you to call it in. I didn't want to interrupt.
Nope, you're good, and I'm glad you came in because I put this out there at that point. When you're writing certain things, like you try to keep so many different things in mind, and try to like say how are people going to react like this, how are people going to react like, and again he's written. I think and someone will correct me at that point. I'm almost certain like he's written pretty much almost every episode this season. I want to say that he, if not a majority of it, but obviously he wrote this one. It's just like when you're writing that stuff, I don't think that he was purposely trying to be just a jerk and saying, I'm going to do, and kind of talk about him wiping out a species and just being insensitive. Like, I think he was just, it was a joke that got overplayed, and, it's saying, okay, I'm sorry, sorry I didn't like it. I really wasn't trying to do it. And to think that, Jon Favreau was trying to say, "Oh, I'm all about Baby Yoda being a genocidal maniac." It's like, all right, now we're taking it a little too far at that point. Let's just
somewhere in the middle there.
Again, it's one of those things that you can't. You try to plan, you try to write for what it is, and then someone's going to go either too deep or take it a little too far at that point. But again, I see the perspective. My problem with it was that I think they did it too much, and if it only happened once, I'll be very shocked outside of, he ate an egg that's the last of the species, last of the line. Didn't do it again. Okay, we got it.
And actually, Adam, also in your back, man, I wanted to ask you a question because that you touched on this slightly earlier about talking about, and this is basically what we're talking about here, about you're not going to please everybody. There's going to be some people, but some people don't like what you have, but then you look to the left and there's people who that's what they came for type deal. When you write, do you write because it's your passion, it's with the thought and the image that you want, and whoever likes this like this, or do you try to cater to more people based on what you're writing in your writing?
I think, the impetus initially is you're writing to create the story that you believe in and are passionate about. And you're trying at the core of it to really be true to that. I think is, at least for myself.
Okay.
And you can hope to do that. Now, because writers, sometimes people forget they're flawed. And so sometimes they actually put things in their own stories that create problems for their own vision, right? Mm-hmm. I know that I've written scenes and I've sat on premiere night in the movie theater and watched a film and went, why did I write that scene? It actually undermined what I was really trying to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that in general, folks begin with this intention, but anybody needs some refining, somebody else to help you perceive it better and more effectively. And that's the slippery slope, right? Because somebody can come in and be like, don't you see this storyline or character or moment you have is actually undermining what you're trying to do. Right. It's like, I remember for season 1 of Mandalorian, right? Like after episode 1, people are like, is he going to take that mask off next week? And it's like, no, he's not going to take that mask. He's not going to take the helmet off next week, because it would undermine what part of the messaging, right? Mm-hmm. But if somebody would have said, the audience really needs to see that face. Let's take it off episode 2. You know what I mean? You would have compromised. So I think that's the dangerous place. I think that really badly happens in television, right? I'm trying to hold true to this vision. I need help. I elicit help. And sometimes that help does the opposite. And now we have something worse because somebody felt like there's this note that they really wanted to see in there that actually undermines what you're trying to do. Okay. I would say.
Okay. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, that actually came up when you were talking about. I thought we have a writer right here, so it worked out perfect. Yeah. That's a question too. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Mando, the second episode. I just watched it when I got off work today. Like I watched half of it, as I'm on breaks at work, and then the other half as soon as I get home and watch a great standoff interview. But I do like having that kind of stuff fresh in my mind as I'm watching it because then I'll take notes about it. I can remember more about it. But episode 2, what did you think about the X-Wing situation in episode 2, Chris? I thought
it
pretty cool.
Like I thought. It was cool because we hadn't seen we get a couple of callbacks. We get like the idea that the raid on from season 1 of the prisoner thing, it gets called back on. When they tag him, and Dave Filoni makes a little cameo. He doesn't speak anything but he's in the other X-wing at that point. But
is he? Oh, I didn't know that.
it's Dave Filoni. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So, but again, there are stakes, there are consequences for what happened at that point, and so the idea. But there's also a nice little callback, and I put this in the chat. I can't remember what day because our chat gets so big, but the creature that is in the ice caves was something that was a concept art for Empire, and
Spider?
The spider, yeah, that was a concept art idea from Empire at that point. So again, for those of us that have been like taking this stuff in and seeing this stuff and seeing it pop up, there are little homages to it, just like where we get the idea of Mr. Nathan brought it up and Katie brought it up this week on Star Wars Alliance. Mr. Mandible, the way he looks, the creature at that point, Filoni, Favreau, and the costume designers made sure to put it in the costumes and the makeup like it was back in New Hope. Like it's very practical. It's not. It's a way of tip of the hat saying, hey. Yeah, we can tell that's a costume, but that's not the point. The point is this is what Star Wars is. It's a mix of practical and CG.
Yeah, Mr. Mandible is the ant in the bar scene. Yeah, that's what I thought.
And the episode directed by Peyton Reed.
Mr. Mandible, just because I didn't catch his name the first time. Mr. Mandible.
Yep, excuse me, Dr. Mandible.
Dr. Mandible, that's right.
Dr. Mandible. Yeah, and the episode is directed by Peyton Reed, who directed Ant-Man. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Just see portfolio of ants.
Yep.
All right. I'm trying to think. There was one more thing. Oh, okay. One really cool scene. I love whenever he gets jumped at the beginning. The second episode opens up awesome on the speeder bike.
Hey Mike, how you doing, man?
Howdy, partner. How's it going?
It's good, boy. So the party never stops, does it?
Oh, Adam.
I think you're playing a call.
I know, it's 24/7. It's 24/7.
Adam.
Oh, sorry.
I think you're playing a call on the.
Yeah. There we go.
There we go. Okay. I just didn't want to put anything personal out there for you. That was like no big deal.
Sorry.
No problem, man.
The whole thing.
Yeah, you're good. So second episode opens up. Speeder bike man looks badass. I love it. Flying through the desert. He's got Yoda in the back. Ears flopping in the wind. Stripped up by that wire. The jump by those guys, and then they basically are trying to steal the child. I guess was that their objective, was to steal the child or just rob him? Because it didn't seem like they wanted the child except to hold him for hostage, or Yoda to hold him hostage. But in that scene anyway, I love that he just gives away the jetpack, and I was like, wow, he really gave that away really, really easily. Like, no problem, just gave it away.
But see, that's when I knew it's like he's giving away easily because he's got something.
Yeah,
he's got something up his sleeve.
And I figured that too, but I wasn't sure what it was because I've never seen him go to his wristband to control his jetpack. Maybe he does. I just never paid attention to it, But as soon as he did it, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And it reminded me of Force Unleashed, which was probably to this date my favorite Star Wars game I've ever played, either 1 or 2. I remember there was this level where there were stormtroopers on an elevator, right? And you could, through the Force, drop the elevator up and down. And I would drop, there'd be a stormtrooper sitting in the elevator, and I'd drop it down really fast. And as he was falling, I would raise it back up and bounce him, and then play ping pong with the stormtrooper.
Yeah,
really fun. And it kind of reminded me of that. So
well, I do think that they might. I think it's hard to tell, but I think in some ways I think it was a little bit of both. Because remember, there probably is already a bounty on Mando from the Empire to get the child back.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I guess he did take everybody else out. So
yeah, so it's hard to tell, but I could see that maybe a little bit of both. But again, there's word of a Mando being out there, and so why not take him out or take his stuff? So.
And I wanted to ask, what is the lady's name on the planet that the curly hair reminds me of Ripley from Alien? I can't remember what her name is, but she seems like she's going to be like the guy in the chair. She's the reoccurring kind of assistant character. She's always there to help him out. You know, it's like his home base type deal.
Wait a second. Type.
Very good. Yeah, it's an interesting character. Whenever I first saw it last season, I didn't think by any means that it was going to be a character that was going to be a recurring character, but apparently it is. So
Yeah, I pull up a cast list at that point.
So you've watched episode 3, man, and I'm really excited
I have.
to see it. I'm really
Yeah,
excited to see it.
I can't think of the name, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I like her character. I think she, like you said, I think it works because she's the spaceport. Like, she knows things. She's connected a little bit at that point. But yeah, like I said, this one, it's a big payoff for those of us that have been, with this and know who's been cast and know what's coming.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I thought the chemistry between her and Mando on this episode, at least episode 2, was the best I've seen it so far. You know, like the back and forth, they're comfortable with each other, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think again that goes to his idea of understanding who she is as a person. She is not about, like, she cares, but she also wants to get ahead a little bit, but not to the point of, like, to hurt someone. Yeah. You know, she's willing to say, "I'll help you if you help me a little bit," but again, we're all going to win in the end. And she's definitely a good person. So.
Okay. All right, man. Well, there's not a whole lot more. We went talked a whole lot about not just the 2 episodes, but just Mando in general and philosophy with the Star Wars and Mandalorian, which is awesome. So, sure, I go to squirrels on Super Civil Servants. So we do. Well, cool, man. Well, we got one more big thing to talk about, and Adam hopefully is coming back soon. But if he doesn't, we'll just roll through it with the Grace interview. So let's take our last break, and then we'll be right back, and we will talk about the Grace interview, folks. Same exact thing. Don't pick the ads, just spots. Check the volume, and we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So once again, Podcast Magic. Chris, we're on the last interview of the evening. You know what's funny is we only had really 3 things to talk about tonight, and we're already at an hour and a half. So great minds.
This is the Olympic run here.
There you
go. Yeah. No, I know. If you gotta get to episode 3, I haven't seen it. I got into places where I was like, I'm getting lost here.
Yeah. I'm definitely. Well, I want to go see episode 3 tonight, but yeah, you definitely gotta watch 2 and 3. 2 is exciting. 3, Chris is making me really, really excited for, so I don't care how they
Like I said, if you've been a follower of this stuff, this has been something that some of us have said were we ever going to see this in live action? People and mentions and names have been uttered.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not the big one.
Okay.
It's not the big one.
It's not the big one
yet.
Okay.
Not the big one yet.
Okay.
So let's leave it at that.
I'm pretty sure we're on the same page with that. So.
Yep.
Cool. Alright, here we go. So, Snyder did another interview with Grace Randolph. And I gotta ask, Chris, what do you think about this Grace interview thing? Because, like, it for me, it's powerful to have every interview with her. And it seems like they get along, they get really well. I don't know, maybe she's just doing the interview and being excited, but it seems like things go well between them whenever they have an interview together.
Well, like with anything, Grace Randolph, I've gone record, I'm not the biggest fan in the sense of what I think she does break some stories, but I also think it's very obvious a lot of stuff is clickbait and a lot of stuff is, to get people to go, but that there could be a lot of serious. And so I'm not the biggest fan, but as I kind of said in the chat, one, I don't think Zach has to go to someone like Grace Randolph.
Right.
But he chooses to go to her to bring some more information out there, to have a platform with someone that's, and they do talk before. He made his stud. She did prep him in the sense of like questions that they were going to be asking about and talking about at that point. So whatever, again, I'll give her one view. If I were to non-view, it was not going to make or break her platform at that point.
Right.
So I'm going to watch it because I'm a Zack Snyder fan. I want to know what's going on with him because he always drops little hints in there. I mean, he had a great.
He's good at revealing the mystery, isn't he? He loves to drop a little piece. He's good at it.
And he dropped this week with the Nerd Queens, with their stream. At that point, we got our first little. We got another look at Martian Manhunter. That was very cool. Yeah. So and talking about who we'd cast.
One of my favorite characters.
Oh yeah. Yes. And then who Catwoman, who he cast as Catwoman at that point, that became a huge thing this week after he put that out there on their stream. So we got two big streams of Zach, but this one today with Grace, he revealed he talked about a lot of stuff from Jared Leto to Ben Affleck to how much actual new footage is actually going to be in this, like reshoot wise, and. Where do you want to start?
Well, I've actually got it right here in front of me, and it's a 31-minute video, I think. What's the 30-minute, 37-second video? Yeah, and there's 21 topics broken down into. So you got a minute and 15 seconds, a minute and 20 seconds for something like that.
And that's what I mean. Like he was ready for the stuff, which is fine. I mean, again, it's his world. Right. He's gonna set the terms.
All right. Well, I'm gonna touch on a few of the topics here because I don't want to go over. I don't honestly. It was cool to hear about the Army of the Dead stuff, but I'm more when I listen to Zack Snyder right now. I'm more interested in hearing stuff about Justice League. So I didn't skip over that stuff. I heard it, but we'll kind of skip over that for talking about it now. One thing I want to talk about: new look for Joker. What do you think about that?
I liked it. I liked, again, kind of his hint, and like he said that, he loves what Ayer did. Mm-hmm. He's always been a big supporter of Ayer at that point. He said, he says, I wanted to honor what had been crafted with him because I thought it was really cool. Some water has gone under the proverbial bridge between when we last saw Joker and this appearance. So yeah, he's made some ... He's a road-weary Joker.
Road-weary is the word I was looking for, yes.
Road-weary. And so you hear that, and, we talk about that, and thinking about it, it's like, okay, what does he mean? Snyder is very purposeful in what he says and how he says it. Like our buddy Scott on Squadcast. He is very purposeful in what he says and how you choose words. So this gives us an idea. We could see... he just talked about this thing, but maybe we're talking, are we going to see the death of Dick Grayson? Are we going to see that? Well, it's hard to say by this quote because he's talking about he's in a very different place from when we last saw him. So are we going to see him very much in the nightmare sequence like we have heard there's a possibility? Are we going to see him? And so we're going to see him in that, or we're going to see him in the breakout scene. I think this lends it very, very road weary. I think we're going to see him in the nightmare.
Yeah, that's the word that kind of threw it up for me too when I heard that, and I was like, I want to remember that word, but of course I should have wrote it down. I forgot it. So.
But do you think this is going to have such a when I think about a new look for the Joker, it's like I don't think there was necessarily a ton of love for the David Ayer Joker. I don't know if there was a ton of love there. Although I love David Ayer.
Very divisive.
I love David Ayer. He and I even actually, I was his AD for a time on a few videos, and really the coolest guy. But I feel like because Joker was so well reimagined in the film, in his single titled film, and was so loved, I'm really concerned about people being able to identify with whatever he drops as a Joker, right? Because the Joaquin Phoenix Joker is essentially becomes the penultimate, and so it's like, how do you do something that isn't going to be him and not get just mad backlash, right? I just don't know how unless it's Joaquin, which it's not going to be, and unless it's that version, I don't know how fans are going to be able to really jump on, with just how monumental that film was. I guess that's what I struggle with.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Leto's, like we said, Jared Leto's Joker was pretty divisive in the sense of the community.
Yeah.
You either liked it or you did. There's really no in between but that. I think, but the shocking part is that he's going to be in this movie to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no utterance of this outside of the like some hints or words or things like that. This was never in a quote unquote plan that I had ever heard the possibility of.
Right. And it makes me wonder too, because Zach even talks about it later about people talking about he's cheating when he's doing this HBO Max film because he's recording extra additional footage, and he mentions it in there that there's probably only about 4 minutes of additional footage other than what he already had filmed and created. Like,
and that's what people want to jump on and think, oh, it's only 4 minutes, so it's really not. I said he's gone on record. We have not seen but less than a fourth of what he shot.
Right.
That is what he has never seen the theatrical cut. He acknowledged that again. I've never seen the theatrical cut, but from what I know, what people have told me about it, we have maybe seen at most a fourth, more likely less than a fourth of what he cut. So really, this is all new for us, but additional to that, and people want to jump on in the sense like, well, he's cheating. He acknowledged that. He admits it. Yeah, I'm kind of cheating it, but again, it's what I say to people about the quote unquote special editions, the added stuff that Lucas added, and we're going to bring back Star Wars. The original stuff. That's his vision. Those are his movies. And if he wants to add some stuff, things like that, guess what? Sorry you don't like it, but that's the creator's choice at that point. It is your choice. So if he has been given the keys to the castle if this is his last shot to put his true Justice League out there, that there is nothing after this for Zack Snyder to do with this, he's said it before, no compromise. This is it. If he's got one last gasp, he's going to do whatever he can with the money he has.
Well, mark my word, this will not be. I can almost guarantee you.
I hope
after
not.
This happens, we're going to see some more Zack Snyder Justice League, Zack Snyder DC stuff coming out, and I can't effing wait because he's my favorite director. I love his vision, love the way he films things, his stories.
What do you think, Adam? I mean, again, we never really talked to you about Zack Snyder itself. What is your whole whole thing of how this came about?
Yeah, no, I think thinking about Zack Snyder as a filmmaker, he's definitely, obviously very accomplished and incredibly capable, and he's tackled some really incredible properties between 300 and Watchmen, let alone Justice League and Superman. He essentially tackled the biggest titles in all of comic books, right? I mean, yeah, if you would say the Watchmen is the most critically acclaimed and a piece ever written, and then Superman, unarguably the most significant superhero, right? And so it's like he's put his hands on this universe. But I feel like with once again, I think he can sometimes be divisive as well too. He has a great cinematic look, as you mentioned, right? He has a visual style, and that's really what put him on the map with 300, right? When you look back at his early Dawn of the Dead, it wasn't as defined, this visual aesthetic, right? He was much more traditional storyteller, and I think that maybe sometimes that's the fight. I think for myself is sometimes because they all look amazing. I'll say that all his movies look so amazing, but sometimes I wonder if I miss from maybe from a writing standpoint, maybe some of these sort of more intimate moments that I feel like sometimes I miss from his films, even though I visually and from scope wise, I mean, come on, they're spectacular, and I really appreciated in 300 and Watchmen how much he stuck to the source material. He feels like somebody who honors the material, which that's I have a lot of mad respect for that. So it's and I think that maybe, and so when I look at his his film work, sometimes it's like a hot and cold effect for me sometimes, because I've loved things and then some things I haven't as much, and so but I think as far as a human, as a person, I would like the guy. He's fabulous and he deserves all of his success for sure. He's a really quality person for sure. And has had some hard things, but so that's my take on it. And so I am very excited because I think Justice League had a lot of mixed feelings. that I feel like this is his chance to maybe eliminate some of those mixed feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta ask you, what do you think about the theatrical cut? Just like the one that we got so far.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what was really hard for me with the tale was because I mean from a visual standpoint, once again, it's great, right? But I felt like from a story standpoint, it ended up almost empty, and some of it's kind of silly. You know, it's like you've got Aquaman jumping out of the sky with his trident, right? He never gets near any water hardly, and you have kind of his odd sort of crying bit moments, and then I just don't know that I ever felt fully emotionally invested in any of the characters.
That makes sense.
And I really wanted to, right? Like, the idea with Batman kind of being this, the way he was kind of like charging in against the rules, and there were pieces there, but I'm not emotionally taking this ride yet with anyone. What did you guys feel? Did you feel that too? Like, I felt like I was sitting on the tip of all these icebergs, and I was like, I gotta get down, and I never got there.
Yeah, I mean, again, Greg and I, and I don't know if you listen, the guys over at Squadcast Media, Tim and Scott, listen to the kind of lead up to it. A lot of the stuff that they had shared, and a lot of the people that had shared stuff with them at that point, we were gearing up for a film that we saw, and then when I walked into the theater and walked out, I was like, this isn't what I was expecting. And this was not it just wasn't what it is, and I've only seen it a second time just because my wife hadn't seen it, and that was just one of those to see it, and I have not seen it since, and will never see it since. It's just that movie does not exist as long as I have this, and even if I wasn't going to get this, that movie doesn't exist to me because that was not the true vision.
Yeah, I can agree with that, right? Like, we can just say, let's pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah,
right.
Let's just, for everybody's sake, say, okay.
Right. And Adam, I understand what you're saying there too, because like for me, Batman vs Superman is my favorite movie. Like I just love the movie. I love how complex it is. I love the story. And I feel the emotion in the characters. Same with Man of Steel. I could probably say it's probably my second, but I don't know. There's a few movies I have to mull over. You feel the difference in the writing and the characters. Like, you're emotionally connected to Henry Cavill in Man of Steel. I'm emotionally connected to almost every character in Batman vs Superman. I feel them. I feel that emotion. It tugs at my heart. I did not get that in Justice League.
That's right.
I did not get that, and like you felt that difference immediately, and it was just like, oh. Now I do own a digital copy of that. That's only because it was on sale last year for $4.99 on Amazon on Prime. It was like, hey, it's on sale for $4.99. So I've seen it a few times. I may watch it one more time before I watch Snyder's Justice League come out on HBO Max, just because I don't hate the movie. There were a lot of good parts about the movie. There were a lot of bad parts about the movie, in my opinion, and it wasn't what I was supposed to see. That's my thing. I want to see where that vision was going after Batman vs Superman, not after it kind of skewed off into an alternate reality.
That's right. So. That's right, because I agree with you. When you speak of Man of Steel, there's some really nice, heartfelt moments in that film, right, that really land. And I was, and I didn't need Justice League to be a perfect film. It's obviously really hard to get those characters together and make it meaningful, but I was hoping for that. Those, you know what I mean? And I agree with you. It just didn't happen. I was like, I just got done with it and went, huh?
Yeah.
Right? You just went, what?
I felt really bad because when I went to go see Justice League, I had brought a few friends who are not
of course,
not as big of comic book fans as me, but they like comic book movies, and I was like talking it up. I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be awesome!" And then we left the theater, and I was like, "I gotta buy you guys around." Well, I'm sorry.
And like you, I own it. I own the Jim Lee Steelbook, and kind of like Scott has said, when they got, and he gotten that as a joke sent to them. That is meant to put in the Zack Snyder's Justice League because I love Jim Lee art, and it is a fantastic steelbook. At that point, the movie is for crap, and I hope HBO, Warner Media, once this comes out, that cut does not exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be gotten rid of. But what I kind of getting back to the interview, he talks about how I thought it was cool talking about how he filmed a pickup with Ezra from distance, on a Zoom. Mm-hmm. He did that. He sent over to Fantastic Beasts because he just said, I would love to go over there, but quarantine. I can't get him back over there because then he's going to have to quarantine. So he sent the storyboards over to the people at Fantastic Beasts. And they were, I mean, how cool is this? Like, they are going to take the time to work to get the storyboards, get it all set up for him, put him on a little, like, from almost like Sheldon and Big Bang Theory, a little couple of iPads where he could see the filming and direct Ezra and get this pickup done. And talk about, like, that is something that we have never thought possible, but he problem solved it. Can you do this? And this is a crew that's not working for Zack Snyder that were able to help him out at that point. I'm not saying they did it for free. They didn't go into that, but
no. So they're all the Warner family. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's one that was cool, and just hearing him talk about Ben getting back into the costume again and joking about saying, I think he forgot how uncomfortable that sucker is.
Which surprises me. I would think that the batsuit would be comfortable. Maybe that's just me.
I don't think you've heard anyone ever say, outside of, I think, Christian Bale saying when we got to Dark Knight, we finally did something to make you turn the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, no way that suit's comfortable, but I appreciate Zack Snyder's once again persistence of vision, right, to see this through. Yep.
But to the point of, like, we're talking about how HBO Max, he goes into saying they are going to make a push with this. This is a big deal to them. This is going to drive subscribers. We're going to put promotion behind this. They believe in this so much so in the sense of how much this is going to bring into them. But like you said, Greg, I am with you. I don't believe this is the end. I don't want it to be the end. But you know what? If it is, he goes out with his vision that we finally get to see. Yes, it'll stink if we don't get to continue on. But again, he has so much credit going into bringing on Momoa, Godot, bringing Ezra, not saying, Gal was becoming bigger. Jason was Game of Thrones, had some stuff, but again, he wasn't the Jason Momoa we know now.
Sure.
My kids don't read comics, and they know who Aquaman and Wonder Woman are based on Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot.
And so all the people that love working for him come back and are willing to do this. At that point, you have not heard one person come out and say Zack Snyder is a POS and stuff like that. I'm sure there's probably someone out there that feels that way, but their voice isn't big enough, and it's to a testament. But I love. We are going to get a commentary for the trailer that's going to be re-released on the 17th. Like, that is so cool because that is just, again, he's going to break it down for us, just talk about things that we saw, point things out that we never saw before, and give that stuff we've gotten for BVS and, Man of Steel. And maybe we're going to get a date.
Well, he also said that there might be, and if Zack Snyder says there might be, there's going to be some additional scene or two in the trailer.
He said a tweak. A tiny tweak. Yeah.
But, a tiny tweak probably means, we'll see.
It could be just
seconds. Maybe 2 scenes, 6-7 seconds total. So
I'm ready to give this a new try, though. I really am. I'm ready for this.
Did you see the trailer before it got taken down because of music rights stuff from Fandom, Adam?
I never saw it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's.
I feel like I missed something. I feel like I missed something painful that I missed.
Yeah, they got recently taken down. You got a big hubbub, but apparently there was music rights and music rights issue.
That's always
and it was. they should have, as people say, hindsight's 2020. Probably should have said something before they took it down. And at that point,
Adam, if you need it,
and it had everybody mad.
I might be able to get you a copy of it that I have somewhere stored.
It's something very cool. Just because, again, it's for those of us that have wanted to see the vision. It's just cool to finally see some of these things and sequences that we have never seen on outside of still shots at that point. So I'm excited to see it, even if it's just like a few seconds of an additional just scene. That's all we get of an additional extra thing in the trailer. I want to know the date. I want to know when we're getting this.
I agree. And I want to know a solid date, too. I mean, I know it's hard to do with everything going on right now, but it just seems like every time somebody tells me, oh, this is when this is coming out. No, it's not. You're going to have to wait. So, but I guess it's just the world right now.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're going to go really deep into this whole interview. In fact, like I said, there's 21 different little topics they talk about. Not very long, minute, 20 seconds for each one, maybe. Some a little shorter than others. DC Alliance podcast on Monday evening live. We're going to be talking about that, and it's going to drop. Audio's going to drop on Tuesday. But before we wrap up,
FYI, definitely check out Twitter. Ray dropped a new image that has not been seen before from his basically a new photo with him in Flash that has not been seen before.
Oh, nice.
So definitely check that out.
But,
we should definitely check that out.
Oh yeah. Well, there's only one more thing I want to talk about before we get to that, Chris. Is there anything else about this interview you want to point out? Like I said, go check it out. It's on YouTube right now. It's 30 minutes long. It's a great interview. For some reason, every time I watch the Zack Snyder interview, I've got a Joker smile on all the time.
And definitely, I'll plug again. It's a longer stream. Check out his stream, what he did with the Nerd Queens. They have been some of the biggest ushering, and I don't care what anyone says. They have done so much for this movement, and they're some of the nicest people. I don't care what they say.
People,
They check out the Nerd Queen stream that he did this week. It's a very long time, but again, it's not just about Justice League. It's just everything. Just him, quote unquote, letting his hair down and just having a good conversation with fans. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, it's really great. Only other thing I want to talk about was the suicide prevention fund that he's raised. Update the numbers on that. He's up to almost $500,000.
We'd raised before the new campaign, the new thing that started, $430,000 have been raised for American Foundation of Suicide Prevention.
Yeah. Saving lives. It's great to hear that news. Every time you hear the number, I think when the trailer came out last time, he was talking about it was only like 270. So it's gone up that much since the last trailer to come up.
Yeah, no, I mean, suicide it's gone way up. Unfortunately, during this time of quarantine, you see these statistics, 200% increase, and obviously he's somebody who's personally affected by it in a terrible way, and so, yeah.
But I did want to say that it's great that they've raised that money. Zack Snyder says out there, he puts it out there. You guys are saving lives, and that's the most important thing about all this. The movie, he'd give it up for anything. Saving lives is great. Chris, you ordered one of those T-shirts, correct?
Yeah. He put out there a new from the artist had done similar one for his chat at the Art Center at that point. You actually can still fundraise for that at that point. The original where you see the Superman, Batman, Dawn of the Dead Zombie all melded into one. You can actually still buy that ink to the people. That those funds go directly to the Art Center at that point. But it's the same artist who did that designed the new Dark Side one.
Looks so awesome. Did you watch the video? I think you may have seen the video.
Yep. I put the video in the chat of him doing it in fast time.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing. So fun to watch. Looks great too. I like the shirt. I may end up buying the shirt. I think we were talking about in the chat. I think I would like the shirt better in black. Not that I mind it in white, but I just don't wear a lot of white shirts. So that's why, for me, I don't know if it, but it's still a really awesome shirt. And Zach's doing on the 17th. He's doing a giveaway too. Correct? A raffle.
Yep.
It's basically you just got to donate to the cause and show him a receipt that you've donated to the cause or the Suicide Prevention Fund, and you're entered in the and he's going to give away, he says, some kind of Justice League memorabilia that he's going to dig out of the cave. So,
yeah.
I don't care what it is.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah, it just
you know,
it's cool. It's
awesome.
an idea. You know, he'll put it out there. He said, I think this. He says he didn't want to put a time on it. He says maybe 9 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. That means like kind of noon for us at that point. But he said he'll tweet it out. He'll put it on Vero. It's going to be on Vero because that's his platform of choice. Do what he normally does. He said, watch it live. It will eventually, like everything else, populate out there. But just to kind of be part of that fan experience, is, again, Dak has come a long way from. I'm not saying he the way he gave interviews, the way he interacted with fans. He has come a long way from Dawn of the Dead to now.
Mm-hmm.
It is an immense transformation, and I think just seeing the outpouring of support he has, that fans truly believe and want him to be successful, and that he gives us these opportunities, these windows in. He has grown so much as a person and a filmmaker at that point. It's really cool to see that.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like I said, favorite director. I love what he's doing. Just I think the one thing I love the most about Zack Snyder is how much other people love him. Like I said, you were talking before, I've never seen anybody that's bad-mouthed him about the way he acts on set. Everybody not only not bad-mouths him, but praises him for the way he is. He just seems like
he's well loved.
Yeah.
No,
like
the word on the street, totally loved.
That's cool.
Totally loved.
That's cool. That's the kind of guy you want to be. So.
Yeah.
But like I said, we're going to go really deep into this on Tuesday night on DC Alliance Podcast. But I'm willing to talk about anything y'all want to talk about with this. Chris, did you have anything else you wanted to point out about this interview?
Nope. Just again, I understand. Grace is divisive at that point. That's fine. But it's good just hearing Zach talk about this stuff, because again, if you don't watch it because it's Grace, watch it because it's Zach talking more stuff. Or if you're not just that opposed to ever giving Grace any kind of clicks at that point, then you could literally find I'm on right now the direct. Go to their DCU section. They've kind of broken down into the main big pieces of the interview. They have separate articles talking about each. So
yeah. Well, fellas, my magazine is empty. I put 3 rounds in the magazine. I'm gonna say magazine. I say put 3 rounds in the chamber, which doesn't make any sense, but. We only had a little bit of news to talk about tonight. We did talk about it quite a bit. We've been on for a while, and we've had a lot of stuff
and I've got to get over to Crystal Lake. I hear there's some goings on happening in Crystal Lake. Friday.
Exactly right.
There's some screaming going on in the background. I don't know what's going on over there.
Hey, cool deal. Well, I'll tell you what. Fellas, you have anything else you want to talk about tonight? Anything else you want to point out? I know we have these 3 news stories, but. This is Super Civil Servants, open platform, just to talk about stuff you love. Anything else?
I just want to thank Adam for taking the time to come on, and really enjoyed your perspective, not just plugging your project with your new comic, and just getting your perspective from someone who's actually in the thick of it at that point. And I've enjoyed what you have put out there, and I look forward to your new stuff that. Hope fingers crossed everything gets successful with the Netflix venture, and but yeah, just we'll put all that stuff, we'll put all the Indiegogo stuff and plug everything at that point, man. You definitely, and again, as Greg will probably, I'll take away from Greg, like anytime you want to come on, you got an open invitation.
Yes, sir.
Dude, you guys are too kind. I really appreciate it. It's been great. I've been loving it because I love these deep dive chats. It's so cool.
Oh yeah, man. Well, it's funny. It's so cool. Honestly, it's not even really it is a deep dive chat, but it's really just friends talking about stuff they like. And that's the best. That's the best kind of conversation.
That's true.
But no, like Chris said, man, thank you so much for coming on. Seriously, you're welcome anytime. Give me the stuff for the links to your stuff. I'll put it in the show notes. I want to check it out because I'm interested after 10 pages. Of the Kill Journal. I'm interested and want to read more. So it's always good. If 10 pages can hook you, that's a good story. So I want to check it out. But I really do appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. It's been great. Tell everybody where they can find you at.
Okay, so you can find me at Failed Superhero on Twitter, or at Failed Superheroes Club on Instagram or Facebook. It's the best way. And through there's links to get into all these worlds of the 8th or the Kill Journal. Come join the party. It's good.
And then? Mr. Balga, you know something, sir? We have lived too close together and known each other for too long to not have had a drink together. So my birthday's in like 2 weeks. I think I may make a trip to Charlotte, and we might have to have dinner together, sir. Maybe do a live podcast together. So
yes, we will socially distance and have dinner. Finally, we'll have a meeting of the minds. We'll have to like maybe do a recording and
both live
have
stream
to
from
say
our phone at dinner. That's the way.
yes. I don't think we want to hear us eating, but we'll definitely have a stream of consciousness discussion.
That's right. Where can they find you at, buddy?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Balga. Again, you got Marvel Alliance at Marvel A Podcast, and you got my show, World's Finest True Believers at Finest Believers. We got the new episode. We dropped a retro this week with David from DC On Screen and myself looking at Superman for tomorrow. This upcoming Monday, we're dropping a new episode. Returning guest Spencer. He wanted to go look at and deep dive into the DC miniseries Event Leviathan. At that point, Brian Michael Bendis is on Superman, so this was looking at a restructuring of the DC spy organizations for the future at that point. So, good conversations. That'll be dropping on Monday, and and then after that, I've got a couple of our Geek Ultimate Alliance people. It's going to be back-to-back new episodes of people from the network jumping on World's Finest for the first time. So be on the lookout for that.
Good deal. And you can find me at the BatDaddy52 on Twitter. I'm everywhere on the Geek Ultimate Alliance network. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. Yeah, you can find me almost every day. Tuesday nights, check me out on the C3 Panthers podcast, where it's a little different. I talk about sports. It's really fun. I am the wet blanket. I am the guy, the villain that everybody hates right now. But we'll see what happens in the future. That's all I got to say. I stand by my thoughts. Let's come check us out, seriously. You can find me anywhere at the BatDaddy52, and everything's there. So, fellas, thank y'all so much. It's always a great time. Adam, thank you so much once for coming on.
Absolutely.
Chris,
Thank you, Adam.
As always, it's great. And until next week, keep out.
So I've dropped in the